Hey, Damon DiMarco here for CreateX3.com, and by now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I use typewriters a lot in my writing practice. I'm a professional writer, and analog writing, that is non-digital writing, non-computerized writing, plays a massive role in my process. I do all of my first drafts either by typewriter or by pencil, and today what I'd like to talk to you about refilling a fountain pen with a refillable cartridge, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And specifically, the fountain pen that I'm going to use is what's called a Fude tipped pen. That's F-U-D-E, not F-O-O-D. It's more of a calligraphy type pen, or so it's billed on Amazon where I bought this. It's a fantastic pen to have in your arsenal. It's this one right here. Anybody who knows me knows that I abhor ballpoint pens. I can't stand them. I just can't use them. They really grate on my nerves. I mean, I'll use them if I have to fill out a form or something like that, but I would never, I don't even think I have any in my studio, to be honest with you. I would rather write with a pencil. Number one, it's erasable. Number two, the feeling is better. I would much rather write with a fountain pen of this sort. The Fude tip has a nice kind of calligraphy kind of feel to it where you can really make the characters and you feel a definite flow that comes directly from the writing process, the creative process, translated into the hand in an almost painterly fashion. I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. I had no idea what a Fude tip was. It was described in the advertisement as a more flowing script rather than a fine-pointed script, and that's kind of what I look for when I'm using a fountain pen, is that feeling almost of painting with ink. To me, writing in general is about painting with words. If I say that there's a gray squirrel with a huge tummy perched on a surfboard going over a crest of salty blue-green waves, I'm literally sort of painting those words onto the page, and wherever you're reading them, either on a computer screen or on a piece of paper, you're taking those words in and something's happening in your head biochemically, and we're transferring some sort of experience, some kind of knowledge. That's what writing and reading is. That's probably why human beings were able to crawl out of the caves and mess the world up as much as we already have. I'm kidding, not really. Anyway, when I use a fountain pen, what happens is I frequently have to refill it. And this particular fountain pen, let's see if we can get it here. When you unscrew it, you see that right there? This one has a screw at the top here. And here is the chamber, which is removable. There, just like that. I'm going to slide that back in like that. And I'm going to show you how to refill this particular model of fountain pen right now. I'll put it back in just like that. And it screws on. When the pen is being used, you can screw this particular model right on top like that. It posts very nicely, meaning that it is added to the back weight right here, and it's kind of tough to show this in a video, but the balance of the pen is really very lovely. So come on, let's refill it right now. This is probably the part where I tell you that I know many people who have spent fortunes on fountain pens. I don't currently believe in spending a fortune on a fountain pen. I do believe in getting my work done. So this one here actually cost me like $19.99 or 20 bucks at the time. It's solid brass. It works perfectly. I highly recommend it. As a matter of fact, I'll leave a link to it down below if you're interested in it. Many different fountain pens have these disposable cartridges, which you can see right here. These are by Waterman, and they are plastic. The cartridges I just showed you are these right here. They're running all over the table here. These cartridges are reusable, incredibly inexpensive. I think I picked up 10 of them for like, I don't know, $5 or something like that. And I have been using the same refillable cartridge in this particular pen for something like 2 years. Never had any problem with it, so I like to have a lot of them around, but once you buy some of these refillable cartridges, it's not a huge expense. I'm not sure if you can see what's going on inside here. There's a spring that now is down at the bottom of the chamber. If you move it this way and that, you can see that the spring moves back and forth. And this top part of the refillable chamber is a screw device. You see that? You screw it right down to the spring, and then you screw it right back up. And you'll see how that screwing action plays a huge part in drawing the ink up from whatever ink jar or inkwell you're using, and then moves it down again as the ink flows out of the chamber. Take a look. For ink, I have been using Noodler's Blue. They have many shades of Noodlers. You will see that it makes a really beautiful kind of line on the page. I'm very taken with it. Best of all, the combination of the ink, meaning its color against a white page, and the feel of the fountain pen as it's moving across the page is exceptional. But first, let's refill the pen. Refilling the pen is easy. I recommend that you have a little bit of a paper towel handy because it is a bit messy. You can see that my fingers get stained a lot. This is nothing really, but it's an occupational hazard. Take the cap off, unscrew the tip, take the cylinder of the pen, and you can move it aside. Gently, very carefully, since I'm not using an inkwell, unscrew the cap. Already you can see that I'm starting to get some ink on me here. Lift this part of the pen, and we're going to dip it just so the nib is covered. Not up to here, just to here. But first, you can see that I'm screwing the plunger all the way down. I like to do this over the inkwell so that any drops will go back where they can't do much harm. And now we're going to dip the nib into the ink and gently, measuredly draw the ink back up by unscrewing it. Here we go. You'll see it's like loading a syringe in medicine. You see that there? When the plunger screws all the way back to its home position, and check it, I got a few air bubbles in there. I'm not sure if you can see that. The air bubbles are not a problem. This little space at the top that's left over, I don't like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw the ink back down into the inkwell. You can see some drops leaking out there. Do you see that? And try the process all over again. Not sure if you can hear it at this point, but there is a slight suction sound happening. Do you hear that? There, a little bit better. Make sure you get as much ink off there as possible by tapping it. The most important thing I find is to cover the ink as quickly as possible so that a random jerk of your arm does not spill it all over your desk. Put that aside. And now, reassemble the pen. And post it. A couple things you want to keep in mind when doing this. When you're drawing the ink up into the cartridge, you want to do that as slowly as possible. It allows all the air bubbles to filter out. It allows the natural suction action of the cartridge to take hold of the ink and fill up the chamber in a better way. Let's take a look at how the pen actually performs. So, again, when this Fude tip makes a mark, it almost paints. Do you see how that's going on right there? It really has a very nice swooping, painterly, that's the only word I seem to be able to come up with today, feel to it. There. The last person to cross the waste had been Hrothgar the Magnificent, who managed to make the entire journey in only 32 days while only killing 6 of his 7 retainers in the process. I have no idea what that means. It just came out of my pen. It's not up to me to figure out what it means at this point in the writing process. Later on, I'll go back over it as if a complete moron wrote that sentence, and indeed, one did. But I can tell you that when I wrote that sentence, it was an incredibly comfortable process. The food tip on this particular fountain pen is an excellent tool to have in your writing arsenal. I highly recommend that if you are looking into fountain pens, and inexpensive fountain pens, that you look into this particular model, which I see on Amazon all the time. It's worth it. It's a great tool to have in your arsenal, and if you're writing all the time, then you definitely want to have something like this. The closest thing that I've ever come to with this pen in terms of a commercially produced disposable pen would be something like this one here, this Pilot G2. Can you see that? The Pilot G2s are lovely pens. They really are. I mean, if you're going to have a disposable gel pen, these are the way to go, I think. They have a really good flow to them. The problem with these is, of course, that they're disposable, and I have a huge problem with disposability in practically every tool that I own. That's one of the reasons I think I gravitate toward typewriters. They are the opposite of planned obsolescence. They are meant to be kept. They are meant to be maintained. They are meant to be used. So I do totally dig fountain pens over these gel pens. I would take a fountain pen pretty much every time if it writes as good as this one does. I hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching. Tell me about your experience with fountain pens. You can leave it in the comments down here below. For CreateX3.com, my name is Damon DiMarco. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay creative.